Back to technology. This video is a little different. I'm going to show you how to get started from absolute beginning for Mac and for Windows. This computer was completely wiped, so we're going to start from the absolute beginning. This video is what programming is all about. So there's so many tools out there. Front-end development, there's back-end development, there's full stack. What you have to learn is how to program using the terminal. So now that we have our computer set up, let's go to our terminal. Type in CMD. Now you're in the command prompt. Now that we're in our terminal, let's go over some really basic commands. First is CD. What that does is enables us to access a directory. So let's do CD and then go into desktop. Now we're in desktop. The next command is dir. And what that does is list the files in our directory. So because the next command is going to be echo. This command enables us to create a file. We have a file here now called YouTube. Next, let's make a folder. So mkdir, we'll call it txts. Now we have a folder. So now that you understand how to use command prompt, let's install Git. And you're gonna click the 64-bit Windows setup. And Git has been installed. Remember, nothing really is installed on this computer. This computer has been completely wiped for this video. Okay, so now that you know some CMD commands, let's go over some Git commands. So the first command is git --version. We see that we have version 2.43. Now let's check our Git configuration. So let's do git config -l, and that's our configuration. So like I mentioned before, you're probably going to be doing collaboration, which means you're going to be using GitHub. So let's set up our username for GitHub. So let's do git config, like we did before, --global user.name, and then type in your name. All right, next let's do the same thing but for email. So we'll do user.email this time. So the next command is going to be storing those credentials that we just created. There we go, we set those credentials. Now, I have gone over in the past how to submit something to GitHub, but let's just quickly go over those commands again. So the first command that we do is we initialize. So what we're gonna do first is what we did in the past. So we're gonna make a directory. Let's call it YouTube. Let's cd into YouTube. So now we're gonna initialize Git. So we did git init. Now let's create a file. Like we did in the past. And now let's git add that file. And we added that. And like we've done in the past, let's say we have a large project, what we can do is just git add period, and it will add add the whole entire project. Getting away from those commands when it comes to GitHub, let's do git status. What that does is it tells us some information that we need to know when it comes to the branches, when it comes to commits. It's very, very helpful if you're working on a project with a large team and you're pulling files from GitHub. You might use git status to see some previous commits and some other information that would help you in assisting in building the project. Like I said with commits, the next command is git commit -m, and we'll do comment. This is very important. Like I said, if you're working with a team, let's say you're working as a back-end developer on a large project, right? You're committing files to that project. You want to add information that will help other back-end members and that will help the front-end team as well. Now let's create a file called a git ignore. What this will do is that when you add information into that git ignore, like for example, let's say you're working on a React project and there's a lot of node modules, a lot of information that really doesn't need to be on GitHub, you can put that node modules into git ignore, and then when you push everything to GitHub, it won't show up. So it's very, very helpful and keeps the code clean. So this next is what we're gonna do when we're working with, let's say, LND or a very large package. We're gonna do git checkout. And what this does is it picks a specific version. So again, because we don't have a lot of files, all we have is file.txt, but we're gonna do git checkout and then we pick whatever version is in that GitHub repository. Next thing that we're gonna do is revert stage changes in Git. So we're gonna do git reset head, and we unstage changes after reset. Now what we're gonna do is amend the most recent commit in Git. This allows you to modify and add changes to the most recent commit. So we're gonna do git commit like we've done in the past, but instead of -m, we're gonna do -amend. And now we can make changes. And if you type in QA, it will exit. Now let's do a rollback to the last commit in Git. So this is called git revert and head. And again, we can do a rollback. We can make any changes that we want to make to the branch. And we do Control-C to get out and then QA. This is how to create a new branch. What this is very helpful in is, again, say you're working on a big team, or let's say you're doing something in the testing environment, or you are working on an agile project, or you work on an agile project and you have just a small assignment, but you don't want to have that sent to everything because you don't want those changes if you make any errors or anything like that, and it has to go through a code review. You can have something work in your own environment. So let's do git branch, and we'll do my environment. And now let's switch, and now we'll do git checkout, my environment. Again, let's say you're working on a big project and there's a lot of branches. So you want to run git branch. And it will say master and my environment. Let's switch back and forth. Let's say you want to go back into the master branch. You would do the same thing. Git checkout. If I can type. Back into master. The -B is if you want to create a new branch and then switch into it immediately. Let's say the person that was in that branch left the position, or it just didn't work out, or whatever that branch is just had too many errors and you want to get rid of it. What do? So you want to go git branch -D, and then you say the environment name, my environment. and contrasts. Let's say that person does a great job, or you're working on a team remotely and you want those branches to be merged. So we do git merge and my environment. Let's show the git commit logs as a graph. Before we do that, let's just clear it off, make it look pretty. Let's go git log. Again, we only have one commit, so it's not gonna look that pretty. Here's the command. -- one line. And there's our graph. Again, it doesn't look pretty, but that is the graph. You want to do it for all the branches, you just add -- all. Let's say you have a merge conflict. You can run this command. Git merge -- abort. This is how you see remote repositories for your local repository with this command. Git remote -v. Finishing up with git, let's do 2 more commands. Git push and then git pull. What that does is, let's say again, we're working on a team, or you're pulling something from someone else's code from GitHub, you would do git pull, and then you'd pull that branch. Or let's say you're working on some information and someone else has, added packages or whatever it may be, you want to run git pull before you do anything. It's just good practice when it comes to coding. Moving away from Git, let's showcase something that I find important, and that is virtual machines. UTM is a good virtual machine for Mac. So let me explain why you would use a virtual machine in the first place. I believe that your best setup would be having something like Tor with a VPN, and then possibly a second VPN running globally. As far as coding environment, I think that you should go with Ubuntu. I have Ubuntu on both machines. For Mac, the best way to access Ubuntu is with a virtual machine. A virtual machine enables you to run a whole entire operating system on your computer. So we have a Mac computer, but with this virtual machine, we are booting up a Linux operating system. The reason why we do that is because Linux, in my opinion, is the most secure. As a programmer, security should be your most important factor. See here, that's Ubuntu. So let's go over some Ubuntu commands. So let's cd into LND. Let's go sudo apt update. Sudo is really the most important thing to know with Ubuntu. I'm not going to do a whole entire tutorial now on using Ubuntu. Really the most important thing to know is about virtual machines, and that no matter what machine you use, whether you're using a Mac like this or the Windows behind it, setting up a virtual machine can help you with security, and I believe that Linux is your best bet when it comes to programming. Let's do one more command, sudo apt upgrade. You want to run these commands no matter what you're doing. Google, programming or coding is a process of creating and then giving the computer a detailed set of instructions to be carefully executed in sequential order. Hence why in programming there's so many of these. There's a myriad reasons why people code, but the biggest is poverty. Building with programming enables you, especially with blockchain, to do so many things to help your community and get out of a impoverished situation. That is the #1 reason why I believe people should code. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.